The night my father abandoned me, the most dangerous man in Chicago looked at me like I already belonged to him. I was standing under a crystal chandelier in a silver dress that suddenly felt like a costume, smiling for donors at my father's charity gala, when the ballroom doors burst open and federal agents flooded the room. Gasps cracked through the music. Cameras flashed. My stomach dropped so hard it hurt. Then I heard the words that split my life in two. Henry Bennett, this is a federal warrant. My father did not even look at me. He leaned toward one of his lawyers, muttered something I could not hear, and vanished through a side exit while the room exploded around me. Guests backed away like my last name was contagious. A woman I had known since prep school pulled her daughter behind her and whispered, "Do not go near her." He just stood there, burning alive without a flame. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream. Instead, I forced myself to breathe and went after my father, because surely there had to be an explanation. There was not. By the time I reached the marble hallway, he was gone, the elevators were locked down, and reporters were already pushing through the front entrance like wolves in designer shoes. Claire. Did your father launder money? Did your family work with Roman DeLuca? Did you know? He froze. Scam hit first. Then fear. Then anger so hot it made my hands shake. He had no answers. He barely had air. One man shoved a microphone inches from my face and said, "Your father sold you a perfect lie, did he not?" Before I could move, a cold voice cut through the noise. "Step away from her." The hallway changed in a second. Men who had been shouting went silent. Cameras lowered. And then I saw him. Roman DeLuca. Dark suit. Unreadable face. Stillness so sharp it felt like a weapon. It did not touch me. It did not need to. It just looked at the crowd, then at me, like he was assessing damage. "Come with me," he said. He laughed once, ugly and shaken. "You have got to be kidding." His gaze did not soften. "Claire, if you stay here, you will not make it out clean." He should have told him to go to hell. He should. I've run from the Mafia boss my father always called a monster. Back behind me, the camera surged again. In front of me, Roman DeLuca waited like a door I never wanted to walk through. Then he said, "Your father is gone. You are coming with me." And somehow that was worse, because for the first time that night, I believed him. He woke up in silk sheets that were softer than anything in my old life, and for one stupid second, I thought the gala had been a nightmare. Then I saw the locked French doors, the armed guard outside the terrace, and the black suit jacket draped over the chair like a warning. My heart slammed against my ribs. He was not in my apartment. He was not with family. He was in Roman DeLuca's house. A woman in a neat gray dress entered with a tray and said, "Mr. DeLuca asked that you eat." He shoved the tray back so fast the silverware rattled. "Tell Mr. DeLuca I want my phone, my purse, and the nearest exit." Her expression did not change. "You will speak to him downstairs." That was when the fear turned into anger. Good. Anger was easier to carry. Roman was waiting in a sunlit dining room like he had been born in it. Dark good. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A lake beyond the glass. No chance. No shouting. Somehow that made it worse. He looked up from a file and said, "Sit down, Claire." He stayed standing. "You dragged me out of a federal circus and brought me here. What exactly do you call this?" His voice stayed flat. "Temporary containment." He almost laughed. "You mean kidnapping?" I closed the file. "Your father is missing. Until I find him, you stay where I can see you." It rushed to my face. "You think I am leverage?" "I think Henry Bennett will move faster if something matters to him." That hit harder than I wanted. He stepped closer anyway. "You ruined my family." Roman's eyes locked on mine, cold and steady. "Your father ruined it himself. I am just the man cleaning up what he left behind." I hated him for saying the one thing I was already terrified might be true. So I ran. Not dramatically. Not through the front gate like some movie idiot. He waited until a maid opened the service corridor, slipped past the kitchen, and made it all the way to a side exit before two security men blocked the path. Move, I snapped. One of them touched his earpiece. A second later Roman's voice came from behind me. That was a mistake. He spun around. I would rather take my chances outside than stay in your gilded prison. He walked toward me slowly, not angry, which was somehow more frightening. Outside these walls, you are not a society girl anymore. You are Henry Bennett's daughter. There are men who think taking you would buy them cash, revenge, or both. He swallowed hard, but I refused to let him see it. And what do you want? Roman stopped an arm's length away. His expression did not change. Right now? They'll keep you alive. Then he glanced toward the gate and added, because I am not the only one looking for you. He should have slept after that warning, but fear does not sleep just because you are trapped in a beautiful house. The whole estate felt too quiet the next morning. Todo palist. Todo controlled. He stood outside the upstairs library pretending to read the lake through the window when two women passed in the hallway below, their voices low and sharp. They have been asking about her since midnight. Then Mr. DeLuca was right. She is not safe anywhere. He went cold. They were talking about me. He backed away from the railing so fast my shoulder hit the wall. Roman had not been bluffing. That should have made me feel safer. Instead, it made the walls close and I hated that the first person who had told me the truth was him. He hated even more that part of me was starting to believe he was the only one in the room who understood how bad this was. By noon, the air inside the house felt too heavy to breathe, so I slipped into the south garden with a sweater over my dress and anger in my chest. I told myself I just needed 5 minutes without guards, without maids, without Roman DeLuca watching me like a high-risk asset. The hedges were taller than I expected. The stone path curved past a delivery gate I had not seen before. That was when a man in a maintenance jacket stepped through the side arbor with a clipboard in one hand. And eyes that locked on me too fast. Miss Bennett. My stomach dropped. Ismail, but it was wrong. Your father sent me. He took one step back. Ten anoter. No, he did not. The clipboard hit the gravel. It moved. He turned, breath tearing out of me, and nearly crashed into a wall of black wool and steel control. Roman caught my arm, pulled me behind him, and said in a voice so cold it cut the air, "You picked the wrong house." Everything after that happened fast. Security poured in. The stranger was gone from my sight in seconds. Roman did not let go of my arm until the gate was sealed and the garden was empty again. My pulse would not slow down. Neither would my thoughts. He looked down at me once, jaw tight, as unreadable. From now on, you stay in the east wing. He jerked my arm free. So this is it? New room, tighter leash. New reality, he said. Someone breached my grounds to get to you. My breath caught. He stepped closer, not soft, not kind, just certain. You are moving upstairs, Claire. More guards. No unscheduled doors. And no more pretending you understand the danger better than I do. He wanted to fight him. He wanted to scream that I was not his responsibility, not his prisoner, not anything of his. But my hands were still shaking, and the worst part was this: when that man came for me, I had not called for my father. He had looked for Roman. Roman moved me into the east wing like I was a problem to be locked down, not a person. Bigger room. Heavier doors. 2 guards at the end of the hall instead of 1. He stood in the middle of that polished prison and waited for the panic to pass. He did not. By evening, anger took its place. Better. Cleaner. Easier to hold. So when Roman walked into the sitting room next door, loosened his cuff links, and acted like this was any other night, I followed him in and shut the door hard enough to make a point. I want the truth. He did not look surprised. That is a dangerous request. He crossed my arms to stop my hands from shaking. You keep saying my father put me in danger. Fine. Tell me what he actually did. Roman poured a drink, untouched, then set the glass down. Years ago, Henry Bennett moved money through shell charities and private funds for men who wanted my family weakened. My pulse spiked. That is not possible. My father worked in finance. He sat on hospital boards. He funded schools. Roman's mouth curved, but there was no humor in it. That is how respectable men hide. They build clean buildings with dirty money. The words hit like a slap because some ugly part of me had already started wondering the same thing. I hated him for saying it out loud. He stepped closer anyway. You are lying because you need me scared. His eyes pinned me in place. I do not need fear from you, Claire. I need you alive. He should have looked away. He did not. That was the problem. Then I reached for the folder on his desk before he could stop me. Most of it was numbers, accounts, names I did not know. Until I saw one I did. Margaret Bennett. My mother. The room tilted. Why is her name here? Roman moved fast then, not rough, but final. It took the folder from my hands and shut it. That part is not for tonight. My chest tightened. Do not do that. Do not say my father is a liar and then turn my mother into a secret. For the first time, something cracked in his expression. Not softness. Something sharper. Older. He said her name again, quieter now. My mother had nothing to do with this. Roman looked at me like he was seeing a ghost over my shoulder. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. You should not say Grace Bennett's name in this house unless you are ready to hear what it cost. He did not sleep after Roman said my mother's name like it belonged to a grave I had never visited. By morning, the house felt colder. The guards changed shifts. The maids kept their eyes down. And when breakfast arrived, I pushed it away untouched. If Roman DeLuca wanted control, he could choke on it. By noon, my head ached, my hands were unsteady, and I still refused to eat. Good. Candor felt cleaner than confusion. Latte that afternoon, the door opened without a knock. Roman stepped in, set a white paper bag on the table, and said, starving yourself. We'll not punish anyone except you. He looked at the bag, then at him. Maybe that is the point. I did not rise to it. I just opened the bag and the smell hit me so fast it almost hurt. Grilled cheese. Tomato soup. The little corner diner off Maple Street. The one my mother used to take me to after piano lessons when it rained. My throat tightened before I could stop it. How do you know this place? Roman's gaze stayed on the food, not on me. Your mother liked routine. Tuesday afternoons. Window bus. He went still. That was too specific. Todo real. You were watching us. His jaw locked. I knew enough. He should have thrown the tray at him. He should have hated him harder. Instead, I hated the way my body betrayed me by reaching for the memory first. He sat down because my knees suddenly did not trust me. Roman stepped back like he was giving a frightened animal room to breathe. He took one bite. Then another. Silence stretched between us, sharp but not cruel. Finally I said, you keep talking about my parents like you knew them better than I did. A answered without hesitation. I knew parts of them you were never meant to see. The words landed heavy. Dangerous. He put the sandwich down. Then say it. Stop cutting me with half-truths and say it. His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. For one strange second, the room did not feel like a prison. It felt like the edge of something worse. Then a phone rang on the table behind him. Roman glanced at the screen and his entire expression changed. Harder. Colder. A answered on speaker without taking his eyes off me. My father's voice came through the room, low and rushed. Tell Claire I am alive. And if she wants to see me again, she comes exactly where I say. Hearing my father's voice should have felt like rescue. Instead, it felt like standing on thin ice and hearing it crack under my feet. He moved before I could think. Dad. My voice broke on the word. Silence. Then his breathing, sharp and uneven, like even speaking to me was a risk. Claire, listen carefully. I need you to come alone. Roman cut in at once, calm and lethal. That is not happening. My father ignored him. Of course he did. He had always known how to make a room revolve around him without ever raising his voice. Sweetheart, Roman DeLuca wants to use you against me. Do not let him. Come to the address I send. Bring no one. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. He wanted to believe him. He wanted one clean answer, one reason not to drown in everything Roman had said. Then the line went dead. Roman lowered the phone and looked at me like he already knew the war inside my head. It is a trap. He stared back, furious because he was probably right. He is still my father. Roman's expression did not move. And that is exactly what he is counting on. An hour later, I was in the back seat of a black SUV with Roman across from me, Chicago blurring past the tinted windows in streaks of steel and rain. He had agreed to the meeting, but only on his terms. Controlled route. Perimeter check. Surveillance at every angle. He should have felt safer. Instead I felt sick. My father had asked for me, and Roman had turned it into an operation. He folded my arms tight and said, if he shows up, you stay back. Roman did not even blink. If he cared about seeing you, he would have chosen a place that did not require backup exits. He hated how easily he said it. He hated more that I was starting to hear truth in his cruelty. The warehouse on the river looked half dead, all rusted beams and broken windows. Roman's men moved first, silent and fast. He stayed inside until he opened my door and said, you stay where I can see you. Stop ordering me around. Then stop giving me reasons. We stepped into the cold. My pulse was so loud I could barely hear the water. Then I saw him. Or I thought I did. A man in my father's coat moved at the far end of the loading dock. Dad! He shouted, already taking a step forward. Everything broke at once. A car engine roared to life behind the building. One of Roman's men cursed into his earpiece. The figure at the dock vanished. And in that ugly, freezing second, I understood the truth before anyone said it. My father had not come for me. He had sent me there. To keep Roman busy while he ran. By the time we got back to Roman's estate, I was holding myself together with nothing but spite and numbness. He made it up the stairs, into the east wing, through the door, and then I cracked. Not loudly. Not gracefully. He just folded onto the edge of the bed in that borrowed room and stared at my hands like they belonged to someone else. My father had not come for me. He had used my voice, my hope, my stupid need to believe in him, and turned all of it into a distraction. He pressed my fist against my mouth to stop the sound that wanted out. It did not help much. A quiet knock came once. Then the door opened. Roman stepped in, shut it behind him, and stopped a few feet away. No threats. No orders. Just that terrible stillness of his. If you are here to say you warned me, I said, do not. He did not move. I am not. That should not have mattered. Eat teeth. He laughed once, sharp and broken. Congratulations. You were right. My father chose himself. The words scraped my throat on the way out. Roman looked at me for a long second, then said, quieter than I had ever heard him, family betrayal does not get easier just because you see it coming. He looked up at that. Really looked. His face was controlled, but not empty. There was something old in his eyes. Something buried alive. How would you know? He asked. He could have dodged it. He almost did. He saw the refusal rise in him. Then he said, because blood does not always protect. Sometimes it is the first thing that cuts. The room went still. My chest hurt in a new way then, less sharp, more dangerous. Not because he had comforted me. Roman DeLuca did not do comfort. But because for one fractured minute, I did not feel alone inside the humiliation. He stayed where he was, like he knew coming closer would break something. Or start something. He hated that part of me wanted him to move anyway. He wiped my face hard and looked away. You do not get to understand me. His answer came without heat. I know. Silence stretched between us, thinner now. Stranger. Then his phone buzzed. A glanced at the screen. And the softness, if it had even been real, vanished at once. His jaw locked. His eyes went cold. What is it? He asked. Roman slid the phone into his pocket and turned toward the door. Get some sleep, Claire. Roman. It paused, not looking back. Temaru, you come with me. My pulse jumped. Where? A opened the door. Into my world. The next morning, Roman did not take me into his world. A dressed me for it first. A garment bag waited on the bed. Black silk. Clear lines. Expensive enough to feel like another kind of hand around my throat. He stared at it until Roman appeared in the doorway and said, "You are coming with me because the estate is no longer the safest place." He held up the dress between two fingers. And this is what? Your festive uniform? His gaze slid over it once. It is armor. He hated that word. Yet it more that part of me understood it. An hour later, his car pulled beneath a private entrance to a downtown high-rise wrapped in glass and money. Men in dark suits opened doors before Roman even moved. Women in diamonds turned their heads when we stepped inside. The room was all polished marble, low music, old power pretending to be civilized. Then they saw me. The whispers started fast. That is Bennett's daughter. He brought her here. Bold move. My skin went hot. Roman kept walking like none of it mattered. That almost hurt more than the whispers. It had brought me into a room full of predators and expected me not to bleed. A man with silver at his temples and ambition in his smile approached first. Dominique Bailey. Roman's underboss, if the tension around him meant anything. His eyes dragged over me with open disapproval. You brought the problem into the building. Roman took a drink from a passing tray and said, I brought what is under my protection. Dominique's expression sharpened, but he stepped aside. He barely had time to process that before a blonde woman in white turned toward me like she had been waiting for the performance to begin. Vivian Russo. Beautiful. Cold. The kind of woman who smiled with her mouth and never with her eyes. Poor Claire, she said, loud enough for the circle around us to hear. First your father loses his empire, now you have to cling to romance. A few people laughed under their breath. Sham burned up my spine. He looked at Roman, waiting for him to stop it. A did not. A just watched me, unreadable, like this was another test I had not agreed to take. So I lifted my chin and said, clinging implies I had other options. Are you volunteering to offer one? Vivian's smile thinned. Careful. Women without power should not get clever in rooms like this. Before I could answer, Dominic cut in, harder now. She should not be in this room at all. That was the moment Roman finally moved. He set down his glass. The entire space seemed to tighten around him. Then let me be clear, he said, his voice low enough to force everyone closer. If Claire Bennett is in this room, she is here because I allow it. If anyone here humiliates her again, they answer to me. The silence that followed was worse than the whispers. Because now every eye in the room was on me for a different reason. Not because I was Henry Bennett's daughter. Because Roman DeLuca had just claimed me in public, and I had no idea what that would cost. The second we got back to the estate, I stopped being grateful and started being angry. Good. Anger gave me something solid to stand on. Roman walked into his study like the night had gone exactly as planned. He followed him in and shut the door behind me hard enough to make the glass rattle. Do not do that again. A looked up slowly. Do what? He laughed once, Sarp. Parade me into a room full of people who wanted to tear me apart, then act generous when you finally decided to stop them. His gaze did not move. You held your ground. That was not the point. He stepped closer, pulse kicking. You let them humiliate me to see what I would do. Roman said nothing for half a second, which was answer enough. Then he said, survival in my world is not about comfort. It is about learning who folds. It rushed into my face. I am not one of your men to test. No, he said, quieter now. You are worse. You matter. He hated that those words landed anywhere inside me, so I hit back harder. Then stop treating me like decoration you can drag into a room when it suits you. Roman leaned against the edge of his desk, unreadable. What exactly are you asking for, Claire? A real place. My voice came out steadier than I felt. If I am trapped in this life, I am done standing in corners while everyone else handles the truth around me. Something shifted in his expression then. Not softness. Interest. Calculation. Fine, he said. You want usefulness? Neat. It led me downstairs to a locked records room I had never seen before. Metal shelves. Gray boxes. Old ledgers stacked like buried bodies. These are financial archives tied to old shell companies, charities, and closed accounts, he said. Organize what matters. Flag anything linked to Bennett. He stared at him. You are trusting me with this? Roman handed me a key card. I am watching you with this. Which, somehow, was not the same thing. Hours later, dust clung to my fingers and my head throbbed from columns of numbers and dead names. Most of it meant nothing. Until one page did. Bennett Strategic Holdings. My father's company. Not recent. Years old. Tucked inside one of Roman DeLuca's older files like it had always belonged there. My breath caught. My pulse jumped so hard it blurred the print. Because this was no rumor. No accusation. No power play. It was paper. Ink. Proof. And if my father's name had been inside Roman's records for years, then whatever destroyed my life did not start at that gala. It started long before I was ever told the truth. He should have put the file back and walked away. Instead, I read every line twice. Bennett Strategic Holdings. All transfers. Private routing codes. That is that reached years further back than the gala, further back than the federal raid, further back than the version of my father I had spent my life defending. Then I saw it. Give 2 initials in the margin of a transaction note, handwritten and deliberate. My breath caught so fast it hurt. Grace Bennett. My mother. He stared at those letters until they blurred. My father's name in Roman's archive was one thing. My mother's initials were something else. Something personal. Something hidden. He found Roman in the upstairs study, speaking quietly into his phone. He did not wait for him to finish. I held up the ledger page and said, "Explain this." His eyes dropped to the paper. The change in him was instant. Not surprise. Recognition. Which was worse. I ended the call, crossed the room, and took the page from my hand before I could pull back. You were not supposed to see this yet. The words lit me on fire. Yet. He stepped closer. You keep acting like the truth is something I have to earn. That is my mother's name. Roman shut the file and set it down out of reach. Then stay away from old graves, Claire. He actually laughed. Charged. Angry. That is not an answer. His jaw tightened. It is the only one you are getting tonight. He hated him then. Or tried to. Because the part that hurt most was not his silence. It was the certainty that he knew exactly what those initials meant. Later, after the house went quiet, I went back to the records room with my pulse in my throat and my father's lies buzzing in my head. He found the page again. This time I used my phone to take copies before anyone could stop me. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. When I turned, Dominic Vale was standing in the doorway, one shoulder against the frame, watching me like he had been there longer than I wanted to know. Careful, he said. In this house, curiosity gets expensive. He locked my phone and stared him down. Then maybe your boss should stop collecting secrets under my family's name. Dominic's smile was thin and ugly. You think this is about your family? Ace stepped aside, already pulling out his own phone. Vivian is going to love this. By the time he disappeared down the hall, my heart was pounding for a new reason. Because if my mother's name was buried in Roman's past, then maybe she had not just known the truth. Maybe she had tried to expose it. The storm hit just after midnight, hard enough to shake the windows and cut the lights in half the house. 1 second the east wing was all gold lamps and polished quiet. The next, the hallway outside my room went black. I stood there with my phone flashlight in one hand and my pulse in my throat, hating how fast fear found me now. Getting more that my first thought was not where is the exit. It was where is Roman. I turned the corner too quickly and nearly slammed straight into him. His hand caught my waist, steady and immediate, before either of us could fall. The flashlight slipped, throwing wild shadows up the walls. For one strange second, neither of us moved. "Careful," he said, his voice low enough to disappear into the storm. He stepped back at once, heat rushing into my face. "I am not the one haunting dark hallways." A flicker of something almost amused touched his mouth. "This is my house." Sand rolled again. The backup power had not reached this wing yet, and we were trapped in a pocket of darkness that felt too private to survive. Roman leaned one shoulder against the wall, close enough to be real, far enough to stay dangerous. "You are afraid of the dark now?" he asked. He should have snapped something sharp. Instead I said the truth before I could stop it. "I am tired of not knowing where the danger is." His expression changed at that. "Not softer. Just more honest." "That does not make you weak, Claire." He let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "You do not know the first thing about weak." His eyes held mine. "Loneliness. Fear. Waiting for the ground to give way under people who should have protected you." His voice stayed calm, but every word landed hard. "I know more than enough." The storm pressed closer. So did the silence. He should have walked away. He should have remembered every reason he was dangerous. Instead I stayed there looking at him like he was the first person in days who spoke my language. Roman's hand lifted a fraction, slow enough to stop, like he wanted to touch my face and hated himself for it. My breath caught. Then the lights snapped back on. The moment shattered. He dropped his hand at once and stepped away like nothing had happened. "Good. Better. Safer." My chest still disagreed. Roman glanced toward the stairs, all control again. "Get some sleep." He turned to leave. Then I saw the screen of his phone light up in his hand. One name. Vivian Russo. And before he could silence it, I heard her voice spill through the speaker, sharp and familiar. "Roman, if we are really doing this alliance, I want the announcement handled my way." He barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Roman's hand almost touching my face, then heard Vivian Russo's voice cutting through the dark like a blade. By morning, I hated myself for replaying either of them. The estate was quiet, but not peaceful. Roman was already downstairs, somewhere behind closed doors, making decisions that would never include me unless they had to. I told myself that was fine. Better, even. Then I passed the library and heard Vivian's voice again, this time through the half-open door. "If we announce it too late, the families will think you are hesitating." Roman answered too low for me to catch every word, but I heard enough. "Stability matters more than appearances." My stomach dropped anyway. "Announce it. Families. Hesitating." He did not stay long enough to hear more. He did not need to. The truth had already done its damage. He walked away before they could catch me listening, each step colder than the last. So that was it. The softness in the dark. The protección. The claiming in public. None of it meant what I had let myself almost believe. Roman DeLuca was still Roman DeLuca. Power first. Strategy first. Me, somewhere after. Good. Better to know now than later. By dinner, I had rebuilt the walls. Roman found me in the records room with another stack of files and one of my mother's copied pages folded in my pocket. "You disappeared this morning," he said. He kept my eyes on the ledger. I was not aware I had to check in. He stepped closer. "What changed?" He let out a short laugh. "Nothing changed. He just finally understood the rules." Silence. Then, sharper, "What rules?" He looked up at him then, And I made sure my face gave him nothing. That I am useful until I become inconvenient. That every decent thing you do comes with a price. That whatever happened in that hallway last night meant nothing next to whatever deal you are making with Vivian Russo. His jaw tightened. You do not know what you heard. I know enough. The words came out clean. Hard. Suffer that. Wait. Roman stared at me like he wanted to say something and hated the need to explain himself. For 1 second, I thought he might. Then he just said, do not make decisions based on fragments. Then stop giving me fragments. We stood there, both angry, both holding something back. Then my phone vibrated in my hand. Unknown number. One message. He opened it before Roman could stop me. If you want the truth about your mother, come alone. Tonight. Same number. New answers. Ethan Cole. My pulse jumped. Roman saw my face and held out his hand. Give me the phone. He closed my fingers around it instead. Because maybe Roman was right. Maybe fragments were dangerous. But right then, fragments were all I had. He waited until the house went quiet. Not asleep. This place never really slept. But quieter. Far enough from Roman's footsteps. Far enough from his questions. He changed into jeans, pulled on a dark sweater, and slipped out through the service hall with my phone clutched so tight my palm hurt. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was exactly the kind of mistake Roman kept accusing me of making. He did not care. Ethan Cole was offering something Roman never gave me without a fight. Answers. The meeting point was a coffee shop near the river that had already closed for the night, its back patio lit by one weak string of bulbs and the glow of the street. Ethan was not what I expected. No cheap smile. No swagger. Used a dark coat, tired eyes, and the kind of calm men wear when they want you to trust them. Claire Bennett, he said, rising slowly. I was beginning to think you would not come. He stayed standing. Talk. I nodded once. Your mother was trying to expose a financial network tied to your father, Roman DeLuca's enemies, and people inside the city who still look clean on paper. He can protect you if you help me build the case. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protect me? That is everybody's favorite word lately. Ethan did not flinch. Roman keeps you alive because you matter to his war. I am offering you a way out of it. The words landed harder than I wanted. Before I could answer, headlights swept across the alley behind the shop. 2 men stepped out of a dark SUV, moving too fast, too direct. My pulse kicked. Ethan's attention snapped past me. That is not my team. One of the men called my name. Not gently. Not like they were there to help. Fair hit hard and clean. Ethan grabbed my arm. We need to move. He jerked back on instinct. Round move. The taller man closed distance fast enough to make my blood run cold. Then another voice cut through the alley, sharp as broken glass. Get away from her. Roman. Relief hit first. Then dread. His men came from both sides of the block like they had been there all along. Roman reached me in seconds, pulled me behind him, and looked at Ethan like he was deciding which lie to address first. You left my house for him, he said. He opened my mouth, but one of the men from the SUV shouted into a phone, we lost her. Bennett's people are pulling out. Everything inside me went still. My father's people. Roman did not look at them. He looked at me. Furious. Controlled. Hit in a way that felt worse than anger. Get in the car, Claire, he said. No. Roman did not speak for the first 10 minutes of the drive back. Neither did I. Chicago lights slid across the SUV windows in cold streaks, and every one of them felt like an accusation. I stared at my hands and could still feel Ethan's grip on my arm, still hear that man shouting about Bennett's people pulling out, still feel the force of Roman stepping between me and the mistake I had walked into on my own. Finally, I said, I did not leave for Ethan. Roman looked out the window, jaw hard. You left for answers. You keep hiding them. That got his attention. It turned then, dark eyes flat and dangerous. I keep hiding what gets people killed. It rose in me at once. And Ethan says you hide what threatens you. Roman laughed once. No more. Ethan Cole wants headlines, leverage, and a clean witness with my name attached. Do not confuse that with honesty. He should have backed down. He did not. At least he talks to me like I deserve the truth. The second the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Roman went very still. You think this is about what you deserve? He asked. Quietly. Your mother's name is tied to men who buried money in charities and political offices. Ethan knows just enough to bait you. That makes him useful, not clean. He crossed my arms tighter. Then tell me what he is lying about. Roman stared at me for a long second, then looked away first. Not tonight. The anger in me broke against something Messier. You always do that, I said. You get close to saying something real, then slam the door. We were back at the estate before either of us spoke again. He followed him into the study because I was too angry to stop. You do not get to be furious at me when all you give me are fragments. Roman turned so fast I nearly walked into him. Fragments kept you alive. Fragments nearly got me killed. The room went dead still. His voice dropped. And so did your pride. I should have hated him then. Instead I hated that part of me knew he was right. The silence stretched sharp between us, both of us breathing too hard, standing too close. Roman's eyes dropped to my mouth for one impossible second. My pulse jumped so hard it made me dizzy. He did not move. Neither did he. Then the air split with a knock at the door. Dominique's voice came through, clipped and urgent. Roman. We have a problem. Roman did not step back right away. Of course we do, he muttered, still looking at me like the unfinished thing between us had become its own threat. A opened the door. Dominique's gaze flicked from Roman to me and back again. Vivian is downstairs, he said. And she is asking why Claire Bennett was seen meeting Ethan Cole behind your back. Vivian Russo was still standing in Roman's foyer when we came downstairs, all white silk and polished contempt, like she had dressed for my humiliation on purpose. She turned the second she saw me and smiled like she had already won. There she is, she said. The girl who keeps making herself expensive. He should have stayed quiet. He should have let Roman handle it. Instead I said, and yet you are the one who showed up uninvited. Her smile sharpened. Dominique stepped in before it could turn uglier, holding a folder in one hand. Enough. His eyes went to Roman. You need to see this now. The room changed. Roman took the folder without a word. He watched his expression close as he read. Then he handed it to me. Layer copies. Foundation transfers. Offshore routing I barely understood. But one thing was clear enough to make my pulse slam. My father's network had moved money through a charitable foundation linked to my mother's name. No, I said before I could stop myself. My mother would never have been part of this. Dominique's voice came cold. Maybe not willingly. But she was in it. The floor felt unstable under me. Roman looked at me, not Dominic. There is more. He hated those words. Hated how often they meant my life was about to split open again. Roman took me into the study and shut the door on everyone else. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he said, your mother came to me once. Alone. Sago. He stared at him. Why? His gaze stayed on mine, steady and brutal. Because she found out what Henry was doing. She tried to warn my family before the damage spread. My breath left me in one hard rush. He shook my head anyway. If that were true, why did she stay with him? Roman's jaw tightened. Because leaving men like your father is not always simple when they know where every weakness lives. The words hit deeper than I wanted them to. He looked down at the page in my hand and saw my mother differently all at once. Not blind. Not complicit. Track. You knew her, I whispered. Roman's voice dropped. Enough to know she was trying to protect you. My eyes burned. Then why did you never tell me? For the first time since I had met him, Roman looked like the truth cost him something. Because before she died, Grace Bennett made me promise something. My head lifted. The room felt too small. Todo still. Roman took one step closer, and his next words changed everything. If the truth ever came for you, I was supposed to keep you alive. He did not know what to do with a promise made before I was old enough to understand betrayal. I stood in Roman's study with my mother's ghost between us and felt everything at once. Grief. Anger. Relief so sharp it almost offended me. Why did you not tell me sooner? He asked it. My voice came out rougher than I wanted. Roman did not look away. Because protection sounds a lot like control when the truth arrives too late. He swallowed hard. It was right, and I hated that too. So all of this, I said, gesturing at the house, the guards, him, was for her. His answer came low and steady. It started there. The room went quiet after that. Not comfortable. Just honest in a way we had never managed before. He sank into the chair by the window because my legs suddenly felt unreliable. Roman stayed standing for a second, then crossed to the cabinet and returned with a slim leather box. He set it on the desk and opened it. Inside were copies of my mother's old letters, yellowed at the edges, her handwriting clean and unmistakable. My breath caught. You kept these. Roman's eyes stayed on the page he picked up. Only the ones that mattered. He took the top letter with careful fingers. My mother's words were not addressed to him, but they were full of fear, coded warnings, references to accounts, names, dimin. She had known more than I ever imagined. She had been trying to hold a collapsing wall up with her bare hands. He read until the ache behind my eyes turned hot. Roman said nothing. He just stayed there, close enough that I could feel his presence, far enough not to crowd the grief. It should not have mattered. It did. Later, when the house had gone almost still, we sat across from each other at the long table, sorting letters and copies into quiet piles. No fight. No game. Used facts and silence and the strange peace of not lying to each other for 1 hour. Then I found it. One line buried near the end of a letter dated 3 months before my mother died. Not Henry. Not only Henry. Someone inside Roman's house is feeding them names. My pulse stopped, then slammed back twice as hard. He looked up at Roman. It was already looking at me. Because in that second, we both understood the same thing. My father was not the only betrayal waiting in the dark. After that letter, I started seeing suspicion everywhere. In the pause before a guard answered a question. In the way staff lowered their voices when Roman entered a room. In Dominique. Bally's smile, which never reached his eyes and somehow always felt like a warning disguised as respect. Roman did not announce a traitor hunt. He did not need to. The whole house shifted around him anyway. Meetings moved behind closed doors. Phones stayed face down. Men who used to speak freely now measured every word. He caught Roman in the downstairs office just after sunrise, standing over a spread of names and transaction logs. You are investigating your own people, I said. He did not deny it. Quietly. He stepped closer. Including Dominic. Roman's gaze lifted to mine, unreadable. Including everyone. Something in me tightened at that. That must be exhausting. Wielding an empire where loyalty expires the second power shakes. His mouth tilted, but there was no humor in it. You are learning fast. He should have taken that as a compliment. Instead it felt like another door closing. Later that afternoon, I walked into the glass conference room and stopped short when I saw Vivian Russo already there, draped across one of the leather chairs like she belonged in every future version of Roman's life. Dominique stood beside the window, calm as ever. Roman was at the head of the table, all control. Vivian looked at me and smiled. Claire. Perfect timing. Perhaps you can finally understand what stability looks like. My pulse jumped. He stayed standing. Say what you mean. Vivian crossed one leg over the other. Roman needs stronger alliances. Cleaner optics. Familias like mine solve problems. Girls like you create them. Dominique did not defend me. Of course he did not. He only added, smooth and cold, for the sake of the organization, some liabilities should not stay close to leadership. Shame hit first. Then anger, hot and sharp enough to steady me. Before I could answer, Roman set down the pen in his hand. Soft sound. Hard silence. Claire is not leaving this house because someone in my circle is nervous, he said. Vivian's smile faded. Dominique's expression barely moved, but I saw it. That tiny flash. Irritation. Almost fair. He held on to it. Because if Roman had just protected me again in a room built on power, then someone here wanted me gone badly enough to. Boost. That night, after the house quieted, my phone lit up with an unknown number. No greeting. No pretense. Just one image attached, Dominique's name beside a shell company tied to my father's sold network. Then a message followed. If Roman wants the traitor, start with the man standing beside him. Ising Cole. Roman did not mention Ethan's message that night. Neither did I. Maybe that was why the next afternoon felt so strange. No shouting. No demands. No Cold War built from half-truths. It just told me to get in the car and said, you need air. He should have argued. Instead I let the silence ride with us out of the city, past steel and traffic and glass, until Chicago gave way to gray water and bare trees. The house by the lake was smaller than his estate. Still expensive. Still guarded. But quieter. Human, almost. Roman stood on the back deck with 2 cups of coffee and handed me one like this was normal. What is this? He asked. I looked out at the water. An hour without other people ruining it. He hated how much I wanted that. We sat in the cold with the lake stretching flat and silver in front of us, and for the first time in what felt like forever, neither of us had to fight for every sentence. He told him my mother used to drive north in the fall just to watch the leaves turn. It told me he hated the city in winter because it made everyone lie prettier. He laughed at that. Actually laughed. His mouth changed at the sound, just slightly, like he had not expected to be the one to pull it out of me. Then his voice lowered. You make this easier than it should be. He turned toward him. What? I met my eyes fully then. No games. No audience. Wanting something different. Michael stumbled. For one dangerous second, the air between us felt warm. He could have said too much. I could have done worse. Instead we just stayed there, close to a truth neither of us knew how to survive. Then his phone rang. Roman glanced at the screen, and the entire moment died in his hand. Vivian Russo. I answered before the second ring. What now? He should not have listened. He did anyway. Her voice came through sharp and irritated. Do not act difficult now. If your people are going to brief the families on the alliance, I want the announcement controlled. My way. Agency. The word hit like ice water. Roman's face gave me nothing. That was the worst part. No denial. No correction. Used silence sharp enough to cut. He stood up too fast and set the untouched coffee down. Roman looked at me then, maybe realizing too late what I had heard. But I was already stepping back. Because one quiet hour by the lake had almost made me forget who he was. And now all I could think was this, while I was starting to trust him, Roman DeLuca might already be planning to marry someone else. The drive back from the lake house felt longer than it should have. Roman kept his eyes on the road. He kept mine on the window, watching the city reappear in hard lines and cold glass. Neither of us spoke. Good. If I had opened my mouth too soon, I would have said something that sounded too much like jealousy, and I hated him too much for giving me a reason to feel it. By the time we reached the estate, the quiet between us had curdled into something sharp. He followed him into the study anyway, because silence was not saving me anymore. How long? He asked. Roman turned slowly. How long what? He laughed once, ugly and tired. How long have you been planning to tie yourself to Vivian Russo while you keep me here acting like I matter? His expression changed, but not enough. That is not what this is. It rushed through me. Then tell me what it is. It stepped closer, controlled as ever. A political necessity. The words landed exactly where they could do the most damage. I folded my arms tight across my chest. There it is. Power first. Always. Roman's jaw locked. You think I enjoy any part of this? I think you would trade anything if it keeps your empire standing. It went still at that. Todo estil. Not anything. I should have heard the warning in his voice. Instead, I heard every time he had chosen silence over me. That is easy to say while I am the one being kept in the dark. The room crackled. Roman's hands flexed once at his sides, the only sign he was losing patience. You heard half a conversation and built a verdict. You gave me fragments again, I shot back. What was I supposed to build? Ope? That hit harder than I meant it to. Or maybe exactly as hard. Because for one brief second, something raw passed through his face before the walls slammed back up. You are making this personal, he said. He stared at him, stunned by the audacity of it. It is personal. My voice dropped. I will not be another woman moved around like a bargaining chip while men decide what survives. That landed. He saw it. Roman looked at me like he wanted to say everything and hated himself for needing to. Back when he finally spoke, it was still not enough. Claire, there are things in motion you do not understand. He stepped back before he could come closer. Then maybe I am done waiting to understand them from you. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. One message. Whitney's protection can move tonight. If you want out before Roman makes his choice, say yes. Ethan. He said yes before I could change my mind. Maybe that was pride. Maybe heartbreak. Maybe I was just tired of being the woman men kept protecting with one hand while arranging her future with the other. He packed light. Jeans. Sweater. Mamoters copied letters. Nothing that felt like Roman. That part was harder than I wanted to admit. The estate was quiet when I slipped out through the lower service gate, where a black sedan waited with two plainclothes agents and Ethan Cole in the back seat. I opened the door and said, "You are making the right choice." He got in without answering. The city blurred past in cold, familiar lines, but nothing about the ride felt like freedom. Ethan kept his voice calm, careful. Once we move you, Roman will not be able to reach you without consequences. He stared at the window. You talk about him like he is the only threat. Ethan adjusted his cuff and said, he is the one with the most to lose. That should have reassured me. Instead it made my stomach turn. By the time we reached the safe house, an old brick property tucked behind a church on the south side, my pulse was already wrong. Todo fast. Todo aware. No visible. Federal markings. No normal rotation. No women. No one explained the rules. They just took my phone and said, standard procedure. He looked at Ethan. You said witness protection. It gave me a thin smile. Temporary discretion first. Formal protections later. The words landed badly. Worse when I noticed the deadbolt on the inside of the door. Worse still when one of the men outside said, too casually, Roman will come. It always does. He turned on Ethan then. This is not about my safety. It sighed like I was finally catching up. Claire, your statement matters. Your movement matters more. If Roman believes you chose me, he will show his hand. Cold spread through me, clean and immediate. He had not escaped a cage. He had stepped into a different one. He moved toward the door anyway. One of the men blocked it without touching me. Sit down, ma'am. My voice came out sharp enough to cut. Do not call me that. Ethan stood, slower now, less polished, more honest in the ugliest way. You wanted out before Roman made his choice. Now we see what he chooses when he thinks he has lost you. He should have been furious. He was. Back beneath the anger, one thought hit harder than all the rest. Roman was going to find out I was gone. And I had no idea whether that would save me, or destroy whatever was left between us. He knew Roman had found me before I ever saw him. The men outside the room stopped talking. One of them cursed under his breath. Then the whole safe house seemed to pull tight around a single fact no one wanted to say out loud. A is here. Ethan heard it too. His face changed first, not with fear exactly, but with the kind of tension men get when the game moves faster than they planned. A looked at me and said, "When he comes in, do not confuse urgency with love." He stared back at him, furious now in a cleaner way. "And do not confuse manipulation with protection." The lock turned before he could answer. The door opened. Roman stepped inside like he had dragged the night in with him. Dark coat. Hard eyes. No wasted motion. A looked at Ethan once, then at me, and the air left my lungs in one painful rush. He had expected anger. He had prepared for it. What I was not ready for was the hurt under all that control. "Claire," he said. "Just my name. Nothing else." Ethan moved first, putting half a step between us like that would matter. She came willingly. Roman's gaze never left me. "Did you?" My throat tightened. At first. The truth landed between us, sharp and ugly. Ethan cut in fast. "She came because you gave her nothing but secrecy and pressure. He gave her a way out." Roman finally looked at him then, and his voice went flat. "You gave her a room with a deadbolt and called it protection." No one argued because no one could. Roman stepped closer, not rushing, not reaching, just certain. "Come here, Claire." He should have hesitated. He did, for 1 second. Then I moved. The relief that flashed through him was so brief I almost missed it. Ethan exhaled hard. "You still do not understand what he is doing, do you?" Roman turned back to him without letting me out of his line of sight. "Say it clearly, Cole." Ethan's mouth tightened. The Vivian alliance was bait. He let the rumor spread because he knew someone inside his circle would move to protect their position. Joe walked right into the pressure point they wanted. My pulse stumbled. He looked at Roman. That was true. He nodded once, exhausted now in a way I had never seen. "I was flushing the network out, Claire. And you left before I could tell you." Sham hit hard. So did relief. So did something worse. Because I had not just misunderstood him. He had walked out at the exact moment he was risking everything to expose the people circling us. Roman held the door open and said, "Quieter this time, come home." The ride back to Roman's estate was quieter than the one I had taken with Ethan, but it felt completely different. Not because the danger was gone. Because this time I knew exactly how badly I had misread the man beside me. Sham sat in my chest like a stone. Roman kept his focus on the road until I finally said, "I am sorry." His hands did not tighten on the wheel. He just said, "Do not leave again without telling me. No lecture. No cruelty." Somehow that made the apology hurt more. When we got back, he followed him straight into the study before the silence could swallow us again. "I do not want to be hidden anymore," I said. Roman turned, tired but alert, like he had been waiting for me to choose a side. "Claire." He shook my head. "No. Listen to me this time. I am done being moved around like glass. If Dominic is tied to my father's network, if my mother died trying to expose something, then I help. For real." Roman studied me for a long second. "Helping means rules. Then give me rules." His voice went flat again, "All strategy. You do not meet anyone alone. You do not follow unknown messages. You tell me everything, immediately." He nodded once. "Donny." That seemed to catch him off guard more than if I had argued. He crossed to the desk, pulled out a file, and laid it open between us. "Routing charts. Sell accounts. Offshore transfers. Then start here," he said. We worked for 2 hours without pretending not to understand each other. My father sold company names. Charitable friends. One shell entity leading to another. Then I found it. a narrow financial corridor tied to a holding company Dominic had once vouched for personally. This one, I said, tapping the page. It overlaps with the Bennett transfers and the Russo pressure campaign. Roman looked at the numbers, then at me. Something hard and decisive clicked into place behind his eyes. He opened the study door and called in two of his most trusted men. From this point forward, he said, never looking away from me, Claire acts with my authority. The room went still. One of the men nodded at once. The other looked surprised, then careful. He felt it then. Not safety. Not yet. Something more dangerous. Position. Place. After they left, I turned to Roman and asked, quieter now, are you sure? His answer came just as quiet. About you? More than I should be. The word stayed with me long after he walked away. But downstairs, another door opened. Heels. Vivian Russo's voice. Sharp. Controlled. Angry. And I knew without seeing her face that she had finally understood something I was only beginning to believe myself. Roman was not pulling me closer out of convenience anymore. And women like Vivian did not lose gracefully. By midnight, I knew Vivian Russo had stopped seeing me as an inconvenience and started seeing me as a threat. The proof arrived without warning. I was in the records room, cross-checking one of Dominique's shell companies against a pressure campaign ledger, when a private email alert flashed across a secure terminal Roman had cleared for me. Anonymous forward. No sender. Used a thread. Vivian to Dominic. If Roman keeps the Bennett girl close, force the families to choose stability over sentiment. My pulse kicked hard. I read it twice, then a third time, because the wording mattered. She had known about the alliance bait. Worse, she had been helping weaponize it. I took screenshots, copied the thread, and went straight to Roman's study. It was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, looking more tired than powerful for once. You need to see this, I said. He took the tablet from my hand, read the message once, and went perfectly still. Not surprised. Confirmed. She moved faster than I expected, he said. He stared at him. You expected her to move at all? His has lifted to mine. I expected pressure. He did not expect her to reach for Dominic directly. The answer should have calmed me. It did not. It only proved how many layers of strategy one was still trying to catch up to. We worked late anyway, side by side at the long table, tracing names, transfers, old favors, and new betrayals. For the first time, it felt like we were actually fighting the same war instead of circling each other inside it. Roman trusted my instincts on the Bennett accounts. He trusted his read on the people. Dangerous balance. Worse because it worked. Then one of his men knocked once and entered without waiting. Boss, he said, voice tight. You need to see this now. I handed Roman a phone already playing a live local news clip. My father stood outside a courthouse in a dark overcoat, clean-shaven, composed, every inch the falsely wronged businessman. My stomach dropped before he even spoke. My daughter, Claire Bennett, is being held under coercive control by Roman DeLuca, Henry said into a bank of microphones. She is vulnerable, isolated, and surrounded by criminal influence. Scam hit first. Then 40. Then something colder. Because he was not just coming after Roman now. It was dragging my name back into public ruin on purpose. He looked at Roman, expecting anger. What I saw instead was calculation sharpening into something lethal and protective at once. He muted the broadcast and said, your father just made you the center of a war he can no longer control. The church basement smelled like old wood, coffee, and the version of my childhood that had died with my mother. Father Michael had baptized me there. He had also once told me my father was a good man under pressure. That memory almost made me turn around. Almost. Roman's people were outside, out of sight, exactly where I had demanded they stay. This meeting was on my terms. For 11. Henry Bennett stood near the folding tables in a dark coat, looking clean, tired, believable. He smiled when he saw me, and I hated that some broken part of me still recognized the shape of comfort in it. Claire, he said softly. You look thin. He did not move closer. You look practiced. That made his smile flicker. Good. Sweetheart, you have been lied to, he said. Roman DeLuca has filled your head with stories about your mother, about me, about things you do not understand. My pulse kicked, but not from fear. From anger so old it finally had a face. Then help me understand. I took the copies of my mother's letters from my bag and laid them on the table between us. The laundering rats. The foundations. Care warnings. Explandos. Henry's eyes dropped to the pages. For 1 second, his mask slipped. Then it came back smoother than before. Your mother was emotional, he said. She panicked when she saw numbers she could not read. The words hit harder than if he had shouted. He stared at him, stunned by the cruelty of how calmly he erased her. She died trying to protect me from you, I said. His jaw tightened. She died because she could not stay in her lane. Something inside me went cold and final. Do not talk about her like that. I stepped forward then, voice lowering into the tone he used when he wanted people to obey and call it love. Claire, listen to me. Roman kept you because he knows what you are. He laughed once. Sharp. Empty. His weakness. Henry's silence answered too fast. He saw it all at once then. The courthouse statement. The bait call. The traps. The years of smiling through lies. My father had known exactly what he was doing. You always knew, I said, my throat burning now. You knew Roman would never destroy me. That is why you used me. Henry did not deny it. I only said, in war, you use what works. The room went still. Any grief I had left for him died right there. He stepped back, away from his reach, away from his name. I am not yours to use anymore. His face hardened at last, all tenderness gone. Then you are choosing him. He held his gaze and let the truth land where it belonged. No, I am choosing myself. But as I turned toward the door, Henry's voice followed me, low and certain. You think that changes what you are to Roman? Claire, the second a powerful man has a weakness, everyone else learns where to aim. By the time we got back to the estate, I was done being shocked by betrayal. That should have made the next part easier. It did not. Roman called an internal meeting just after midnight. No crowd. No ceremony. Just the people closest to him, seated around the long black conference table like power itself had been forced into a smaller room. Dominic Vale stood at Roman's right as if he still belonged there. Bibiane Russo was not invited, but somehow her absence felt present anyway. He took the seat Roman had left for me at his left and ignored the way Dominique's eyes flicked toward it. Roman opened the meeting with one sentence. Tonight, we stop pretending loyalty is the same thing as proximity. Silence hit hard. Dominique smiled once, careful and insulting. That sounds dramatic, even for you. Roman did not react. I only slid a folder across the table. Claire. My pulse kicked. He opened it and laid out the pages one by one. Sell companies. Payment paths. Bennett linked transfers. Dominique signed approvals buried years back. Then the final page. A ledger entry tied to a consulting firm Dominic had sworn was clean. This is the overlap, I said, forcing my voice steady. My Fetters network. Russo pressure money. And the account you vouched for personally. Dominique's smile disappeared. You are taking financial commentary from Henry Bennett's daughter now. Roman's voice went flat. I am taking proof from the person who actually found it. Dominique leaned back, too calm. That was the tell. Even if the account touched Bennett money, that does not make me your traitor. Roman slid another document across the table. This one came from Ethan. He knew because I had seen the shell company image first. Dominique read it. For the first time since I had met him, his composure cracked. Barely. Enough. Roman saw it too. Years ago, he said, each word clean and deadly, someone inside my father's circle sold rats, names, and timing. My family bled. My enemies grew rich, You want to deny it now, do it looking at me. Dominique set the papers down with deliberate care. Then he said the ugliest thing in the room because it was the truest. Your father was getting soft, Roman. Distracted. Sentimental. Someone had to think ahead. The air vanished from my lungs. Roman did not move. And Vivian, he asked. Dominic gave a short, humorless laugh. She wanted what everyone wants. Position. Influence. And once you made the Bennett girl your weakness, using the alliance rumor was easy. That should have been the end. Instead, alarms lit up red across the wall monitors. One of Roman's men burst through the door. Boss, multiple accounts just started moving. Safio se stole. Someone triggered a full burn. Roman's eyes never left Dominic. Of course he did. And in that second, with the whole system starting to collapse around us, I realized exposing the traitor was not the same thing as containing the damage. Chaos has a sound. It is not screaming. It is doors opening at once, orders hitting the air too fast, phones buzzing with bad news, and every person in the room pretending they are still in control. Roman moved through it like he had been built for collapse. Dominique was removed. Accounts were freezing. Safioses were burning. And somewhere inside that avalanche of damage, my phone lit up with a private message from an address only my mother had ever. Usted with me. Claire. He hid something before I died. Come alone if you want the truth. The blood drained from my face. My mother's name hit harder than fear ever could. Roman saw it instantly. What is it? He should have shown him. You know that now. But grief is a stupid kind of hope, and hope makes people reckless. Nothing, I lied, already stepping back. Roman's eyes narrowed. Claire. He shook my head too fast. You need to handle this. Then I turned and walked before he could stop me, each step louder in my own head than in the hall. The car waiting at the side drive was familiar. One of the old church volunteers from my childhood sat behind the wheel. Your mother trusted me, he said softly. Get in. Edith. That was my second mistake. The first had been believing grief ever comes alone. The abandoned marina on the river smelled like gasoline and rain. No hidden letters. No lookbooks. No funnel proof from my mother. Just my father, stepping out of the dark in a tailored coat like he still owned every room he entered. My stomach dropped, but I did not back away. Not this time. You used her name, I said. His expression did not change. I used what I had. Something inside me went cold and clean. You do not have me anymore. Henry smiled then, tired and ugly. Claire, this is not about having you. It is about what Roman will trade to get you back. He finally understood the shape of his last move. Not money. Not escape. Me. A car door opened behind him. Min waited just out of the light. Not close enough to touch me. Close enough to make the point. Henry stepped nearer, lowering his voice like he was offering fatherly advice instead of another betrayal. Tell Roman I want clean access to his offshore channels and safe passage out of the country. In return, you go free. My pulse pounded, but the fear did not own me this time. It thought I was still the daughter who would break first. It was wrong. He lifted my chin and said the only truth left worth saying. Then you should have chosen a different hostage. Because I would rather burn your last bargain to the ground than help you use me one more time. Henry's smile disappeared the second Roman arrived. He came down the marina dock without rushing, dark coat open in the wind, men at a distance behind him and the river flashing steel under the lights. He did not look at the others first. He looked at me. Relief hit so hard it almost dropped me to my knees. Henry saw it. Of course he did. There he is, my father said, like this was still a negotiation and not the last ugly thing he had left. You want her back? Then we do this clean. Offshore access. Exit routes. No interference. Roman stopped 10 feet away. His face gave nothing away. Release Claire. Henry let out a dry laugh. First, You give me the channels. One of Roman's men stepped forward with a slim case. My pulse spiked. He knew what that meant before anyone said it. Real accounts. Real leverage. Not a bluff. He turned to Roman, checking. No, he did not look away from Henry. Claire. No, I said again, louder now. Do not do this. I will run and do it again. Henry's jaw tightened. Enough. You do not speak here. That used to work on me. It did not anymore. He stepped away from him, even with the men behind me, and said, that is your problem, Dad. I do speak now. His face hardened at once. You ungrateful child. Everything I built was for this family. He laughed, sharp and furious. You built a machine out of lies and called it love. The dock went quiet. No one moved. No one interrupted. Henry looked at Roman then, almost desperate under the anger. You see? She is emotional. Give me the access, and I am gone. Roman took the case from his man. Opened it. Held it where everyone could see. Then he said the one thing that changed the air. These accounts cost me years of power. Henry's eyes lit with greedy relief. Then you understand the price. Roman closed the case and tossed it into the river. Gasps. Shouting. Water swallowed the whole empire in one brutal splash. My father actually froze. So did I. Roman's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. I do understand the price. His gaze found mine and held. And I choose her. Something broke in Henry's expression then. Control. Leverage. Whatever mask had kept him standing. The mane around him shifted, uncertain now, because the bargain was gone and so was the illusion. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing left to trade. And Roman had just told every enemy watching exactly what I was to him. After the marina, silence felt different. Not empty. Full. Roman got me back into the car himself, one hand at my back, steady but careful, like he knew I was still holding myself together by force. Neither of us spoke on the drive home. We did not need to. The river was still in my head. The splash of that case. The look on my father's face when Roman threw years of power away like it weighed less than I did. By the time we reached the estate, my pulse had calmed, but nothing inside me was quiet. Roman led me into the study and shut the door behind us. For a second, we just stood there looking at each other like the truth had finally outrun both of us. He was the one who broke first. Why? My voice came out softer than I meant it to. Why would you do that? Roman let out a breath, tired and raw in a way I had never heard from him. Because keeping those accounts would have meant losing you. He shook my head once, almost angry at how much that mattered. You could have kept your empire. His eyes locked on mine. Then it would have been the wrong empire. That hit hard enough to make my throat burn. He stepped closer before I could think better of it. You tried to make me leverage, I said. Then protection. Then distance. Roman gave a short, humorless laugh. I failed at all three. The room went very still. His voice dropped. You became the one thing I could not treat like strategy. He looked at him and felt every fight, every misunderstanding, every almost moment rush back at once. I stopped being afraid of you a long time ago, I said. I just did not know what to do with that. Roman's expression changed then. Not softer. More honest. More dangerous because of it. He lifted a hand slowly, giving me time to stop him. He did not. His fingers brushed my cheek, light enough to break me. Then let me make this simple, Claire, he said. I do not want a deal. I do not want control. I want you. My breath caught. All the walls I had built felt useless suddenly. Then here is my truth, I whispered. I am done running from this. Roman leaned his forehead against mine, eyes closing for one brief second like relief itself had weight. And when I chose him back, there was nothing strategic left between us at all. The aftermath was quieter than the war, but somehow harder. No more traps. No more anonymous messages. Just consequences, clean and unsentimental, arriving one by one. Ethan Cole tried to salvage what was left of his case by turning Henry's collapse into something bigger, something public, something he could still control. He sat across from him in a federal conference room 3 days later, hands folded in my lap, my mother's ring cold against my finger. You still have time to make the smart choice, Ethan said. Roman DeLuca is vulnerable now. He looked at him and felt nothing but exhaustion. Then maybe you never understood my choice to begin with. He told the truth. Not Roman's version. Not my fighters. Mine. About Henry. About the false protection. About the way men kept trying to turn my life into leverage and call it justice. Ethan's face hardened with every answer that refused to give him the clean monster he wanted. Good. Let him work harder for his narrative. Back at the estate, Roman was already cutting the last of Dominique's influence. New security rotations. New financial walls. Safoses closed. Old loyalties tested and retested. It was ruthless about it. Not angry. Claire. He watched him rebuild what betrayal had hollowed out, and for the first time, I understood that power did not always look like domination. Sometimes it looked like refusing to let rot survive. That evening, I drove alone to my mother's grave. First time since the funeral. The stone was smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was finally big enough to see it clearly. He stood there with the wind in my coat and said the words out loud because no one else was there to hear them. I know now. I know you tried. My throat burned, but I did not look away. And I am done carrying his lies for both of us. When I turned, Roman was standing a respectful distance back, hands in his coat pockets, saying nothing. He had not followed me as a guard. He had come as the man who stayed. He walked to him slowly. He searched my face once and asked, "Are you all right?" He exhaled and let the truth be simple for once. Not the old version of me. His expression softened in that rare, dangerous way that still felt like a secret. Then he held out his hand, and this time, taking it felt nothing like captivity. It felt like peace. Months later, my mother's name was on the front of a building for the first time without shame attached to it. The Claire Bennett Foundation did not look like revenge. It looked like light. Clean windows. Warm rooms. Legal aid for women and families trapped inside financial abuse, coercion, and the kind of quiet manipulation that hides behind respectable last names. He stood in the lobby before the opening ceremony with my palms damp and my heartbeat too loud, staring at the plaque until Roman stepped beside me and said, "You built something stronger than anything Henry Bennett ever touched." He let out a breath that almost shook. I built what my mother should have had. Roman's eyes softened in that rare way that still felt like a private fracture in a dangerous man. And what you deserved. The old version of me would have looked away from that. The woman I had become did not. That night, after the guests left and the flowers began to wilt at the edges, Roman and I sat across from each other at a long family dinner table that no longer felt like a battlefield. His inner circle was smaller now. Cleaner. Loyal in a way that had been tested instead of assumed. There was wine on the table. Low music from another room. No whispers. No hidden knives in polite smiles. Just peace, which still felt strange enough to notice. One of Roman's men leaned back in his chair, grinning as he looked between us. I still cannot believe the great Roman DeLuca actually found a weakness. The table went quiet for half a beat, the kind of silence that used to mean danger. Now it only meant everyone wanted his answer. Roman looked at me first. Not the room. Not the man who worked for him. Me. Then he said, calm and certain, weakness is just what people call the one thing worth protecting. No one laughed after that. No one needed to. Because the truth of it settled over the whole table and stayed there. Later, when the house had gone still and the city lights burned silver beyond the glass, I stood by the window with Roman behind me, his hand warm around mine. He had started this story as Henry Bennett's daughter. A bargaining chip. A public humiliation. A weakness men thought they could use. But that was never the end of me. He turned toward Roman, and for once, There was no war left between who I had been and who I chose to become. There was only this. The man who had once taken me as leverage. The man who had learned how to love me without owning me. And the life we built from everything that tried to destroy us.